Raise your hand if you're not from Germany. Raise your hand if you don't consider Germany to be home. Raise your hand if you're not really sure where your home is. Now that brings us to an important question. What is home, or rather, where is home? Where is home? That's always been a really difficult question for me and other international people that I know to answer. Because I can't just name one geographical place. I have to explain my entire life story. Because my nationalities don't answer the question, and neither does where I live. So the easiest option is to lie. Just pick the place that's easiest to explain. Where is home? America. But then why are you in Germany? Home has many different definitions. There's the most basic one, which states it's the place where one lives permanently, especially as a member of a family or a household. That seems logical, but I can say I've never lived anywhere permanently. So does that immediately mean I don't have a home? Does that mean that anyone who raised their hands to the statement that they're not initially from Germany doesn't have a home either? Thank you. An alternative definition is that home is the town, house, or country where one lives now or where they were born, often to emphasize that they feel they belong in that place. But before we get into that, let me tell you about myself and my international upbringing. I was born in Vienna, Austria. Half my family lives there, and it's the one place that has remained a constant throughout my life. Is that home? I have no emotional connection to the city other than that I was born there, so no, that's not home. When I was 1, I moved to the suburbs of New Jersey. I spent my childhood there. To me, thinking that you belong in a place means that you would want to move back there and live there permanently, as the first definition said. But believe me, I do not want to move back to the suburbs of New Jersey. So no, that also isn't home. When I was 9, I moved to Amsterdam. I had never felt so alienated from a culture before. I didn't speak Dutch, and I went to an international school, so I had no contact with the natives. I was in a complete bubble. That had been the most difficult move to adjust to. Of all the places I've lived, Amsterdam, the city in and of itself, was never home because I never felt that I belonged there. Even as I lived there for longer amounts of time and as I learned the language, it was never my home. But was my little bubble within Amsterdam home? Lastly, I moved here when I was 14. I wasn't as alienated because I already spoke German, but again, I go to an international school. And for the most part, all of my friends come from international backgrounds. Is Berlin home? Home to me is a place that is completely mine, one where I am so comfortable that I would never feel like the odd one out. But let's take a step back for a second and look at what a cultural identity is and how home plays a part in that. Wikipedia, the most reliable source, as I'm sure most of the teachers would agree, defines a cultural identity as a person's self-perception or self-conception. And it's often related to nationality, ethnicity, religion, locality, generation, social class, or just a social group that has its own distinct culture. So essentially, your cultural identity is whatever you are. In a nutshell, I am a white, upper-middle-class, Austrian-American atheist, and I don't have a home. At least I don't have a home in the traditional sense. I always thought that was weird, not belonging to anywhere, and I thought that meant I didn't fit into the strict guidelines of what I thought a cultural identity should be, which made me so jealous of people who had never moved because they never had to think where home was, so they never questioned their cultural identity. Taking one more step back and looking at the broader picture, it is so easy in such situations for a person to be made the other, to be alienated, and that can quickly lead to resentment. If you're in a culture that you don't feel a part of, why would you abide by their rules? Imagine this. You're dropped in a country where you don't speak the language, you don't know anyone, and the culture is completely different from your own. Maybe some of you don't have to imagine what that's like, because you've lived through it. What would you do? I know I was really unhappy when I moved to Amsterdam, and I went from one Western developed nation to another. With that in mind, how can we look at refugees, for example, and blame or judge them for not abiding by the social norms, despite the fact that no one has taken the time to integrate them and teach them what those social rules even are? Going back to the definitions of home I mentioned at the beginning, I want to hone in on the part that says it's to emphasize where one feels they belong. I feel that I belong with my family, with my friends, with my school community, wherever that may be. Could that be my home? Could it be a non-physical community? Through looking at this, I've decided I do have an answer for when people ask me where my home is. Home is my community of international people who have different religions, ethnicities, nationalities. My home is quite literally a community full of people that have no idea where home is. So I like to offer a slight adjustment to the definition of home. Home is the place where one lives now or where they're born, but home may also be a community of people in one which feels they belong. So I'm going to ask again. Can everyone please raise their hands if you, at the beginning, you felt that you didn't know where your home was? Put your hand down if you now think you know where your home is. Thank you.